Imagine asking a religious person a very simple question: who created the universe? You might expect an answer that God created universe. Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, some supreme intelligence that existed before everything else and brought the universe into existence. But now imagine one of the oldest religious texts in human history, and instead of receiving an answer, you find a question, another question, and then another question, until finally the poet seems to ask something almost unthinkable. What if even the highest being doesn't know the answer? This is not Richard Dawkins or Bertrand Russell speaking. This is not a modern agnostic philosopher. This is an ancient Indian poet speaking in the Rigved, and the hymn is called as Nasadiya Sukta. It tries to answer one of humanity's oldest questions. The twist is, it doesn't answer at all. The Rigved is among humanity's oldest surviving collections of religious poetry. Its hymns were composed in ancient India and transmitted orally with extraordinary precision for generations before eventually being written down. And it's more than 1000 hymns. There is a tiny composition consisting of only 7 verses. Rigved Mandal 10, hymn 129. Today we call it as the Nasadiya Sukta, sometimes translated as the hymn of creation. But calling it a creation hymn can actually be misleading because it does not confidently tell us how the universe was created. It wonders whether anybody can know. And it begins with one of the strangest sentences in ancient religious literature. Then there was neither non existence nor existence. Think about that. It did not say that in the beginning God created the universe. It did not even say that in the beginning there was nothing. The poet questions the categories themselves. Neither Sat, which is being, nor Asat, which is non being. Then what was there? This verse continues. It says there was neither the realm of space nor the sky beyond it. What covered everything? Where was it? What protected it? Was there some unfathomable cosmic depth? The poet does not give an answer. He simply asks the question. Before death and before immortality. This is where the hymn gets stranger. It tells us that there was neither death nor immortality. There was no distinction between night and day. Something existed, described enigmatically as the One, breathing without breath by its own power. And apart from that, nothing else. Try imagining what the poet is trying to say. He is not merely imagining an empty universe. An empty universe already contains space. It contains time. It already allows us to distinguish something from nothing. The Nasadiya poet seems to be reaching conceptually beyond even these distinctions. And remember, this was composed thousands of years before modern cosmology. That does not mean that the Rigved predicted modern physics. No, it did not. But it does mean that an ancient human mind was already wrestling with a question that remains philosophically difficult. What does it even mean to talk about the beginning of everything? And why is there something rather than nothing? Initially, says the hymn, darkness was concealed or hidden by darkness. Everything was indistinguishable. And then something remarkable appears. Calm, desire. The hymn describes desire as arising in the beginning, the first seed of mind. The sages, searching within their hearts, sought the connection between being and non-being. Notice what has happened. We began with mythology, and suddenly we have wandered into metaphysics. How does something emerge? What connects existence with non-existence? Can the origin of reality be understood through external observation alone? Or does the mystery somehow involve consciousness itself? Thousands of years later, those questions have not completely disappeared. But who created it? Now, this is the most important part. The poet finally confronts the obvious question: where did all of this come from? Who created it? Surely the gods will know. Except the Nasadiya Sukta does something astonishing. It essentially says that even the gods came afterwards, after the emergence of the cosmos. Therefore, how could the gods know what happened before they existed? Just appreciate the audacity of that argument. In a religious hymn, the poet has eliminated the easiest available answer. You cannot simply say, ask the gods, because even the gods did not exist. So who knows? Perhaps even the gods don't know. This is the seventh and final verse, the most extraordinary ending to any ancient religious hymn. The poet asks, who really knows? Who can declare with certainty where creation came from? Whether it was created or whether it was not? Perhaps the one who surveys everything from the highest heaven knows. And then comes the final possibility. Perhaps even he does not know. That's where the hymn ends. No revelation arrives. No deity descends and explains everything. No prophet tells the poet to stop asking questions. There is no definitive answer, just uncertainty. So, was the Nasadiya poet an atheist? I don't think so. It is tempting for modern atheists to claim that, look, this is ancient Indian atheism. It is also tempting for religious apologists to claim that the Vedas predicted the Big Bang, but neither conclusion is justified. We don't know the anonymous poet's complete theology. The Nasadiya Sukta certainly is not a scientific theory. There are no equations, no observations of cosmic microwave background radiation, no general relativity or Big Bang. So, saying that the Vedas discovered the Big Bang thousands of years before science does not honor the hymn because it is not correct. It simply says that without modern answers and without modern science, thinkers were trying to grapple with such deep questions. Think about how psychologically difficult those three words are. I don't know. Human beings hate uncertainty. When we don't understand something, we construct explanations. If there is thunder, it's caused by God. Disease, it should be a curse. Eclipses, supernatural forces. Creation has to be a creator. And perhaps sometimes a few explanations could be correct. Sometimes they aren't. But the Nasadiya poet does something intellectually sophisticated. He separates I desperately want an explanation from I actually know the explanation. They are not the same thing. And that distinction tells us and lies at the heart of good philosophy and eventually good science. Now, fast forward thousands of years, we know unimaginably more about the universe than the Nasadiya poet did. We know the observable universe has been expanding from an extremely hot, dense early state. It has emerged from a singularity. We have measured the cosmic microwave background. We study galaxies billions of light years away. General relativity describes gravity with extraordinary precision. Quantum field theory describes fundamental particles as excitations of underlying fields. We can reconstruct the history of our universe astonishingly far back. And yet, we ask ultimately the same question: why is there something rather than nothing? Why do the laws of physics exist? Could the universe have failed to exist? Does asking what happened before the Big Bang even make sense? Why does mathematics describe reality so effectively? And perhaps the strangest of all, why is any part of this universe conscious? Why can matter arranged into a human brain look outward at the cosmos and wonder where everything came from? Suddenly, our anonymous Vedic poet is not so distant. Centuries after Rigved, Indian philosophy would produce enormously elaborate answers. The Upanishads would speak of Brahman, the same underlying consciousness underlying all of reality. Buddhists would offer different metaphysics. materialist Charvaks would reject much of the religious framework altogether, and thousands of years later, Darwin would remove humanity from the biological center of creation. But the fundamental human impulse has remained. What is this? What exactly is reality? And how much can we genuinely know about it? The Nasadiya Sukta is not special simply because it is ancient. It is special because somewhere in ancient India, an unknown human being looked at existence and resisted the temptation to pretend. He asked, wondered, speculated, and allowed the possibility maybe I don't know, maybe nobody knows, and nobody can know. Maybe even the being we imagine standing above creation doesn't know. And somehow, a civilization considered that question sacred enough to preserve it. Perhaps someday physics will answer questions that currently seem impossible. Perhaps consciousness will eventually be explained by neuroscience. Or perhaps some questions will remain unanswered. We don't know, and maybe that is okay. Because ignorance is not the enemy of knowledge. Pretending not to be ignorant is. The Nasadiya Sukta does not give us the origin of the universe. It gives us something else. It gives us the permission to wonder without pretending to know. Who knows? No one. If you like this video, please share it as much as possible and do subscribe to Nerdvana. Thank you so much for listening.